Welcome to the Front Porch Podcast, where
Front Porch Podcast.
yes sir, where front porch wisdom meets football talk between two dads. Go Vols!
Hey, roll tide, baby.
So I was explaining it to you before we started. I've been sick for the past week. Not a lot of topics that I personally want to bring up. I have one, but it ties into some of the other things. Is there anything you want to start out with, just like right off the top? Any opening statement, just kind of get it rolling?
I think probably the biggest. Right now we can probably just get straight into it with the Aaron Rodgers news. I know with the offseason, there's not a whole lot of stuff going on, but easily the biggest topic in the NFL right now is Aaron Rodgers to the Steelers. So I guess we can go ahead and just dive in. What do you think about that? I mean, with it being so late, I know we just started mandatory mini camps and stuff like that, but do you think this is a good pickup? I know it's only for a year, but is this a smart move by the Steelers?
So I don't know. So, all right. So the reason that I have kind of dived into Aaron Rodgers a little bit more than normal was because in my dynasty, I have DK Metcalf. And also I had someone trying to trade me Aaron Rodgers for a few round draft picks or whatever, because although I do have Joe Burrow as my starting quarterback, I do not have a backup quarterback that is a safe option, really. So I had a guy try to trade me Aaron Rodgers. I had a guy that wanted to trade me some things for DK Metcalf. So I turned down the Aaron Rodgers trade and I turned down the DK Metcalf trade. But I think maybe I'm regretting that a little bit. I like DK for the future. I just don't know if I like him this year because I don't think I like Aaron Rodgers this year. It ties into, you wanted to talk about teams that made the playoffs last year that are not likely or that we don't think is going to make the playoffs this year.
Yeah.
One of my teams that I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that is not going to make the playoffs this year is the Steelers. I think the Steelers missed the playoffs this year, and I think Mike Tomlin, regardless of the idea, I know it's a wild thing to say that a head coach that has had nothing but winning seasons since he started there has basically always found a way into the playoffs, regular season champ. He's like the Dak Prescott of head coaches. I think he's on the hot seat, and with Aaron Rodgers coming in, So my breakdown of Aaron Rodgers. Before, I was super confused with the Pittsburgh Steelers as to why they got rid of Justin Fields. I'm big on Justin Fields, have been, but I learned that, so apparently the Steelers, Aaron Rodgers was their third pick. They wanted to sign. First of all, they wanted to keep Justin Fields. That was not like a Steelers decision to let him go. It was a joint thing, but they wanted Matt Stafford to start with.
Yeah, I did hear that they were big on trying to get Matthew Stafford if he didn't sign back with the Rams, which would have been crazy.
Which ties in. So yeah, and then they wanted Justin Fields, and this is all from Adam Schefter. He was talking about the Steelers choosing process there. But yeah, it was Matt Stafford first, and then if they couldn't get Matt Stafford, they wanted to keep Justin Fields. They lost him, and then boom, landed on Aaron Rodgers, I guess, kind of later on. But Aaron Rodgers, the Steelers wasn't his first pick either. Another reporter was talking about, he went to the Rams, offered them basically the biggest discount of all time. He told the Rams, I'll come to you for almost nothing. And Sean McVay and the Rams turned him down. They didn't want anything to do with him. Then he went to the Vikings with Kevin O'Connell. He wanted, great play caller. He wanted to be a part of the Vikings. The same team that said they're not sure if J.J. McCarthy is even the guy or not, turned down Aaron Rodgers for, again, he's been offered. A lot of people, I'm bouncing around here, but a lot of people are high on Aaron Rodgers at the Steelers because he took a team-friendly deal of $10 million. He showed up first day of OTAs or mini camp or whatever, ready to go. And everybody's kind of high on it, Aaron Rodgers is shown back up, da-da-da-da-da. But the full story is he tried to go to the Rams, got turned down. Tried to go to the Vikings, got turned down. And the Vikings, a team that doesn't even know if their quarterback's the guy, turned him down. The Jets, Aaron Glenn, who is a defensive coach, they don't even have, their quarterback, obviously they got Justin Fields and stuff now, but they didn't know what was going on. And the first thing they wanted to do was get rid of him in a very uncomfortable, weird meeting. And I think Colin Cowherd said it best, and I don't normally agree with him, but he was talking about, there's two positions in the NFL that are not allowed to be weird or not allowed to be unpredictable, and that's your quarterback and your head coach. You can be anything. As a quarterback, you're allowed to be small, Kyler Murray. You're allowed to be unorthodox, like Phillip Rivers. You're allowed to be old, kind of like, Brady was towards the end of his career. Now, I know that's Tom Brady, but Joe Flacco. You're allowed to be even the second best quarterback in your family, who's Eli Manning. You're allowed to be just about anything as a quarterback, but if you can't be weird, you can't be quirky. If you're gonna be quirky or weird, go be a kicker. That's his words, not mine. But it's clear that it's people want predictable quarterbacks. They want someone that they know in adversity they're gonna work out and they're gonna perform the way that they're gonna perform. It doesn't even have to be like top tier, top 5 performance all the time. They just need to know what to expect from you day to day. And with Aaron Rodgers and his passive aggressive nonsense that he's got going on and all his conspiracy theories, whether I agree with them or not, and it's all just unpredictable and weird. I think he's bad for the locker room. I don't care that he showed up to OTAs or whatever early, and I don't care that he took a family-friendly, team-friendly deal because he tried to offer that to everybody. It's not like he just believes in the Steelers. This was not his first pick. And I think that's once you get to like Labor Day, mid, when adversity really starts to kick in, the Steelers are going to fall apart. And I think they're going to, even though they may have tried to keep Justin Fields, and I don't know, I haven't looked too much into how hard they tried to retain Fields, but if there was any wiggle room at all to try to keep that guy or to go for somebody else, I mean, again, Aaron Rodgers wasn't their first choice either, but I think, I think that the Steelers are not going to make the playoffs this year, and I think it's going to be Aaron Rodgers, maybe his last year, and maybe even Mike Tomlin's last year as the head coach for the Steelers. So that's kind of
that is an interesting take because this would be the first time in Mike Tomlin's tenure as the head coach of the Steelers that they would not have a winning record and miss the playoffs. So, which I guess they could still miss the playoffs and have a winning record, but I think those two kind of probably go hand in hand if the Steelers aren't going to be successful this year. What I don't like about the Aaron Rodgers signing is that it's kind of been the same issue with the Steelers for forever now. And this isn't a knock against Mike Tomlin. It's he's a Hall of Fame coach already. He's one of the best coaches in the NFL. But they're always just good enough to never have a good draft pick to get a good quarterback. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're always making the playoffs and lose the first round. They haven't won a playoff game, I think, in 7 years. I think it was since 2018. They haven't won in the playoffs, but they're always there. They're always in it or, right outside of it, whatever.
In a very tough conference, too. I mean, the AFC North is no joke.
And I think my problem with the Aaron Rodgers signing, because I don't think Aaron Rodgers is taking them to a Super Bowl. Not even going to be close. Like I said, I also have them missing the playoffs this year, but I still think that he gets them to 8 or 9 wins. I mean, maybe 10 and they miss. I mean, but what I'm saying is you sign Aaron Rodgers and you're not going to win the Super Bowl and you're missing out on a top 5, top 10 draft pick for nothing. And I'm not saying you shouldn't tank for a high draft pick. I'm very strongly against tanking an entire season to get a high draft pick. But there are business moves that can be made to where it's like, hey, look, it is what it is. This is who we got. Let the chips fall where they may. And I think if they would have just stuck with, Mason Rudolph, it is what it is. You didn't have to sign Aaron Rodgers. You didn't get a guy in the draft. You weren't able to get someone in free agency. It is what it is. I'm not saying you're tanking, but I think now drafting Aaron Rodgers, all you did was win yourself 4 or 5 more football games this year, still miss the playoffs, and probably fall down the draft board at least 10 spots to that 12 to 18 range. And you're probably not going to get one of those top QB prospects without trading up in next year's draft because they haven't had a solid quarterback since Ben Roethlisberger, and he's been out of the league now for 7, 8 years. I mean, so I think they kind of just shot themselves in the foot again. I don't like the signing. I don't think he's terrible. I think he's definitely better than what they got. But again, I just think that this is not a move that you make for your future. This is like a win now move, but I don't think anybody is under the illusion that the Steelers are going to win a Super Bowl this year with Aaron Rodgers in that roster.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think in his prime, Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers, right? But again, another thing that Colin Cowherd said was it's about how he aged. And weird ages badly. Like you see other quarterbacks who aren't weird, who just all they do is focus on football, their diet, their workouts, the da-da-da-da, and I'm adding this is not Colin Coward. Quarterbacks who focus on football, they age gracefully. Quarterbacks who focus on weird stuff always age badly. And you've seen it time and time again. And Aaron Rodgers is one of those quarterbacks who have aged in a weird way. He is not aged gracefully in the NFL. I can't hold it too much against him because obviously no quarterback in recent past has done very well at the Jets. But you would think that if there was any quarterback, someone who is probably guaranteed Hall of Famer, one of the best arm talents in NFL history, he would have been able to do more at the Jets. But I don't think it has anything to do with what people think is Aaron Rodgers. People have to get past the idea that Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers because he's not anymore. This guy he's lost it. I think that he shouldn't even be playing anymore. He should be retired. He should be moved on. He needs to go on the Pat McAfee show, spew his weird ideas, which again, I don't disagree with them all, and I don't hate him for having opinions. That's fine. But stick to your Joe Rogan podcast, stick to your Pat McAfee, and get out the NFL because you're messing up opportunities for other people. And not only are you messing up opportunities for other people, but you're messing with Mike Tomlin, the Steelers, a great receiver in DK Metcalf, and all the talent that goes into creating an NFL roster. You are dragging them down with your lack of commitment and your ideals are getting in the way of your football performance. And I don't think that's a hot take at all. I think it's very clear that that's what's happening with Aaron Rodgers.
Well, I agree. And I think that he's, not only messing, I kind of said messing with these teams and just, all the news around him. I think everybody's kind of getting over it. But what I'm saying is I think he's tarnished his legacy. But now I look back, and I've always kind of said this about Aaron Rodgers: what is his legacy? We know he's a great passer. He's got
arm talent.
Yeah, he's one of the best, most talented quarterbacks we've ever seen. But let's look at his career. What has he done? He's been to one Super Bowl in 2011. Yes, they won. Awesome, cool. But that was 2011, y'all. We were sophomore, juniors in high school. Yeah. Like, that feels like a different lifetime ago. So what are we still – I don't understand why Aaron Rodgers has been put on this pedestal when he's only reached the big game one time. And because and it was 14 years ago. Quarterbacks are measured by their Super Bowls. That's just that is what it is, and that's the only position that we grade that way, but that's what it is. Because if you want to start talking about Super Bowls don't matter, we're just talking about greatness, then I think Dak Prescott and Aaron Rodgers are in the same conversation. Because Dak Prescott, I mean, I know he hasn't won 4 MVPs like Rodgers. So sure, winning 4 MVPs, whatever. I don't really give two shits about MVPs. But, Dak Prescott, he wins all the regular season games. He gets to the playoffs and then they lose. So what's the difference between Rodgers and Prescott? One Super Bowl?
The difference between Rodgers and Prescott right now is that Prescott's going to make the playoffs this year.
Well, yeah, but it's, so I mean, I never understood why we always had such, and again, we saw him play great, but he's been underwhelming his entire career minus one season. He's been underwhelming. He's not a top 10 greatest quarterback of all time. He might not be in my top 15. I mean, maybe that's a conversation we're going to have another time, but like Aaron Rodgers gets talked about so highly for having done so little in his career. And I think that everything he's doing with the Jets, now with the Steelers, I think it's just pushing him further and further down, like I said, his legacy. I'm looking at Aaron Rodgers as less and less of a quarterback, and I don't think it's going to be any different with the Steelers. I think we're just going to see a real ugly side of Rodgers and be like, yeah, he should have hung it up after the Packers.
If he would have hung it up after the Packers, they would have if he would have hung it up after the Packers, he'd have been an all-time top 5 quarterback. Everybody would have said the Packers did him dirty and that Aaron Rodgers should still be playing. He would be on college game day spots. He'd be on the NFL network. He'd be everywhere making bukus of money as a top 5 all-time quarterback, NFL Hall of Famer, one of the greatest to ever do it, da-da-da-da-da. And he could have went off and did all his crazy shit on his own time, retired, and been one of the greatest of all time. with, like I said, people blaming the Packers instead of Rodgers. All he's doing as he continues his career is proving to everybody that the Packers were in the right, that getting rid of him, moving on to Jordan Love, especially with his success, that was the best move they could ever made. Now he's going to go to the Steelers and mess it up for another head coach. I think the Steelers are doing themselves a disservice, like you said earlier, by picking him up for a year. I know that it sounds good. Like if you just like the headline, Aaron Rodgers to the Steelers, Aaron Rodgers and DK Metcalf, like that rings like success in your ears, but that's because we can't seem to let go of 2000 and whatever. Like we can't let go of 14 years ago when Aaron Rodgers was the man, but when he actually cared about football. This guy doesn't care about football. I don't know what he's doing. I don't know what his angle is. I don't know why he's taking a team-friendly deal to take some, and maybe that's because it's all he could get. You know, a lot of people are saying, oh, he took a team-friendly deal, like he's being a good guy and helping out the Steelers. Well, maybe they weren't willing to offer him anything but that, you know? So I don't know, but that's my stance on Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers, and I'm not high on him. I do still have DK on my dynasty. I do think that he'll perform. He's the only thing Aaron Rodgers has. Aaron Rodgers definitely still has a good arm. I think they'll put up decent fantasy numbers week to week. I just don't think they're going to win games. If you have him in fantasy, I think you could look forward to like at least consistent numbers. And same with DK. I just don't. There's a difference in fantasy and team success. I don't think the Steelers are going to win a lot of games this year, and I think they fall short. I think they might even struggle to have a winning season, let alone make the playoffs.
Yeah. As far as fantasy goes, I like DK as a starter. I mean, he's just that guy, and like I said, especially with George Pickens being gone,
it's all they
got. Steelers. Yeah, that's all they got. And Aaron Rodgers, he's a guy that he's going to find a comfort blanket, which was Devontae for the longest time. But he's going to find that with DK. You saw them thrown together before he even signed with the Steelers. So that's his guy. So I like DK a lot for fantasy. For Rodgers, I think he'd be an okay backup, but I don't know if I'd waste a pick on him. I think for most people, he's probably going to be in their waiver board. So if he starts heating up and if, your backup ain't doing nothing, I would probably pick him up on waivers, but I don't think I would waste a draft pick for fantasy on Aaron Rodgers.
No, yeah, I'm in a 14-team league. There are no quarterbacks on waivers. There's nobody. You don't get anything from the waivers unless you are like a football genius and can predict the future. You're not picking anything up on waivers.
Okay, well, yeah, but
they wanted to give me Aaron Rodgers for a second-round draft pick or something like that, and I mean, I would rather. I don't even remember who my backup quarterback is, but he's a starter on whatever team he is. I'd have to look. I don't have a backup. I'm just hoping that Joe Burrow stays healthy. It's a tough league. You gotta scrounge your way to the top every once in a while. But
yeah.
That being said, I know you had a question earlier. We were talking about, you said, which is very true. Aaron Rodgers does like to pick out his one favorite target, and the Steelers don't have a lot, so it will be DK. But you asked a question in our text messages the other day about I think you said the top 3, maybe top 5 wide receiving cores in the NFL. We could kind of segue into that off of the Steelers situation, and I was curious to hear and I think I might have rated mine differently than you did, but I'm curious to see what your top 5 receiving cores in the NFL are.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of ways to kind of look at it. Do you look at volume? Is it what's the old saying? Value over quantity, quality over quantity or whatever.
Yeah.
So there's kind of a multitude of ways to look at it. But I actually have at number 5 the Minnesota Vikings, which I know probably sounds crazy because you're thinking
it's a pretty low ranking, yeah.
But yeah, they arguably have the best wide receiver in Justin Jefferson. Jordan Addison's a good number 2, and they do got T.J. Hawkinson, which I think top 5 is great. But I would say that it just doesn't stand out to me. I mean, Justin Jefferson's great. I think they're all kind of just outside of Justin Jefferson. I think Jordan Addison and T.J. Hawkinson. I don't want to call them average because obviously they're not average. I'm saying they're in the top 5, but I don't think they're as good as some of these other players that I'm going to talk about. Again, you have Justin Jefferson, which is amazing. Another thing, and I tried not to allow this to weigh in because I also kind of factored in production from this year. I kind of was thinking, okay,
You're breaking up just
who
a
are we?
little bit.
Okay, I'm sorry. You hear me now?
Yeah.
I was kind of thinking also about production. I don't want to judge them on their quarterback, but I think when I was kind of looking at it for the season, like for the year, who's going to be those top 5 teams with the best receivers? And I do think them having JJ McCarthy as their quarterback. No, I'm not. Yeah, I mean, you know what I'm saying. I don't think that they're going to be as productive as some of these other teams that I have higher on my list. So that's why I got them at number 5.
Okay.
Do you have a 5?
It's fun. So I went into this thinking that we were going to attack this in a different way. I attacked it based off production. I attacked it not only, so I did, the way I ranked it was wide receiver number 1, wide receiver number 2, and then tight end and quarterback. And it's funny because we attacked it. I thought I attacked it in a completely different way than you did, but we approached it in the same exact way, and I have the Vikings at number 5 as well, which is hilarious. Yeah.
Yeah. What are the odds?
Yeah. So I'm right there with you. I completely agree.
My number 4, the LA Rams.
Okay.
Which might not be the most sexy pick, but I think Puka Nacua is a top 5 receiver in the NFL. I mean, he might not be the flashiest or whatever, but when you look at his production, he is that guy. So I think he's a top 5 guy. I think with the addition of Devontae Adams, because I think, when people looked at Puka and Cooper Kupp, it was like, oh, that's one of the best duos in the league. Well, I actually view Devontae as an upgrade over Cooper Kupp, not only for availability, but I also put him over Cooper Kupp for productivity at this point in both of their careers.
I agree. Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah, yeah.
Well, I was going to say I agree, and I think that he is a better, style, with wide receivers, you don't need 2 speedsters. You don't need 2 route runners. You need, wide receivers that kind of mesh well together, and I think Devontae Adams meshes with Puka Nacua better than Cooper Kupp did. Regardless of their talents, I think that his style, they mesh better together as far as...
It almost felt like Puka and Cooper were kind of the same receiver. Yeah. Devontae, it feels like he's filling a different type of style at the receiver position, which gives them more versatility in that room.
Agreed.
Yeah. So again, I think they upgraded at the number 2 position. I'm expecting Puka to continue his success and be a number, now he's the number. Well, I think he was kind of the number 1 last year, but now he's really put into that role as like, hey, he is the guy here. And I'm expecting big things from him. I also really like Tyler Higbee. I'm not saying Tyler Higbee's a top 5 tight end. He might be in that kind of top 10 area, but I think Tyler Higbee's a great tight end. And then to tie it all together, when you have Matthew Stafford slinging the rock, they're going to be a passing team. It is what it is. And I think with Matthew Stafford and those 3 guys, I think that's going to be fun to watch. And like I said, the number 4 productive receiving core in the NFL this year.
Not to mention Tutu Atwell. I know I saw Sean McVay talking about increased usage of him, that he said he hasn't done a good enough job of utilizing him and plans on throwing him in there a lot more. And I'm happy to see that because I was pretty high on him, and I think he could be a great addition as well if Sean McVay is serious about using him more.
Yeah, no, I agree. So you kind of forget about Tutu Atwell. I know he was he a rookie last year or 2 years ago? He's still pretty young. So yeah, he's kind of starting to develop now. So, but yeah, that's someone that you could watch out for as well. Kind of a sneaky number 3 receiver out there coming out of the slot.
Yeah, so I made a top 8 just because I figured we'd have a few that we disagreed on, and I have the Rams at my number 6, so they didn't quite make my top 5. But I agree with everything you said. I like the idea. I'm fine with them being where they're at on yours at number 4. I think my 4 through 6 is basically almost a tie, so I'm with you on the Rams as well. I think I like that receiving core. I like Devontae Adams. I love Tyler Higbee, and then really the reason that I had them kind of as high as I did was it's encouraging to see Sean McVay talk about Tutu Atwell the way he did, about using him a lot more, because now they have 3 wide receivers that it seems like the head coach is excited to use. So
yeah. That's true.
So that was your 4. Who's your 3?
My 3 is another team that I'm really high on this year. We kind of touched on it when we were talking about the NFC, but I got the Buccaneers at number 3. Maybe I don't know why. I feel like the Buccaneers just kind of go unnoticed at times, and then at the end of the year, they're in the playoffs and they win a game, and you're like, what is happening? The Bucs are good. I didn't even notice. But they got Chris Godwin back. Of course, they got Mike Evans. And then with a bouquet from Ohio State that they added in the draft, I think that really does kind of launch them. I mean, having 3 guys like that, and I understand one of them's a rookie, but to me, when you look at just the receivers, not really getting into the tight end too much, because their tight end right now is Cade Otton, which I don't care to talk about him much. But from strictly a receiver standpoint, I do think that they might have the best trio of wide receivers in the NFL. So that's why I got them at number 3. And I love what Baker's doing. I think he's kind of found his home there, finding his groove. We've talked about them before. They got another new coordinator, whatever. But
Yeah.
But I like that. I like that receiving group.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. I don't want to reveal all my placings before you're done, but I completely agree. I think that the Jalen McMillan added in there, Mike Evans. Again, I think as long as you have Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, you always find your way into a top 5 spot, just wide receiver core in general. If you're just talking about that, the only thing that upsets me about them is the way I ranked it. I did include your tight ends.
And they really don't have one.
They didn't check the box for me there. I love Baker Mayfield. I've been high on Baker. I mean, since he took the Browns to their first playoff game since, whatever. So Tampa Bay always going to be in my top 5. I think as long as they have, honestly, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin is really all I need to see. Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah. My number 2, and I, as I was kind of making this, maybe I didn't spend as much time as I should have, but to me, it kind of just came down to these 2 teams. Like I said, maybe I'm missing an obvious one, but to me, these were the obvious top 2. And number 2, I got the Bengals.
Yep.
It's, Jamar Chase, they got T. Higgins back. And honestly, Mike Gesicki is one of my favorite tight ends in the NFL. He might not be the most productive or whatever, but when you watch him play, there's some games that he just takes over and he has amazing hands. He makes just these great catches. He's a real good go-to guy. So I think, that's one of the best, kind of similar to Justin Jefferson and, oh goodness, why am I blanking?
Jamar?
The Vikings number 2.
Oh, Jordan Addison.
Jordan Addison, thank you. I don't know why that was completely, but yeah, kind of similar to Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, but I do put T. Higgins above Jordan Addison. And I think Jamar is kind of right behind Justin Jefferson as the best receiver in the league. So that's why I put them higher than the Vikings. And I like Mike Gesicki. And then to tie it all together, you got arguably a top 3, top 5 quarterback in the NFL, Joe Burrow, which if you look back at Joe Burrow's stats last year, I think if the Bengals make the playoffs, if they had a little bit better defense and you keep Joe Burrow's stats,
he's the
MVP. He's the MVP, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It kind of went unnoticed because the Bengals were so terrible, but they were scoring like 50 points a game and losing.
Hot take, Joe Burrow was the best quarterback in the NFL last year.
And now, stats don't always tell the whole story because a lot of time they were playing from behind or
he did everything he could do, man. There was nothing else.
He did. And he delivered. He definitely delivered. And his defense completely let them down. But you're right. He was an MVP caliber guy. I mean, he's been an MVP caliber guy his whole career, but the numbers last year were insane. So yeah, when you tie all those pieces together, they're my number 2 wide receiving core in the NFL.
Okay.
And then number 1, I guess maybe it's the obvious kind of easy answer, the Eagles.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see how you go outside. Honestly, the one thing keeping me from me being sort of hesitant about putting the Eagles at number 1 was Jalen Hurts. I like him. He's a Super Bowl winning quarterback. What are you gonna say? Did he win the Super Bowl MVP, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's a good quarterback. But when you just look at that, what he's got, I think so. Joe Burrow is one of those guys that will make his receivers better by his play. Same with Matt Stafford. He will make his receivers better. The Eagles is kind of weird because the receivers actually make Jalen Hurts better, but that just goes to show how good their receivers actually are. When you got A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert, who's really found his way there in Philly, I mean, man, that's just a solid crew, and they're so productive. They're fun to watch, and they're guys that you never have to question week in and week out. You know, hey, you put the ball down there, and one of those guys in green are coming down with it.
I agree. So you got Philly at number 1?
I do. Like I said, I mean, they're Super Bowl champs. I do. I think A.J. Brown is a top 5 receiver, wherever you want to put him at. But I think he's somewhere in that top 5, maybe 4 or 5 area. But I think Devontae Smith might be the best number 2 in the NFL, just as far as his role, and he's just a good hand. You know, he's just productive.
He's almost he's almost a co-wide receiver 1.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, hang on, give me.
You talked about your 5. Let's recap what your 5 were, just without the just the teams. 5 to 1.
So I had the Vikings, the Rams, the Buccaneers, the Bengals, and the Eagles.
Okay.
And I will say, to throw out my honorable mention, probably interchangeable with yours, and I'm sure you're probably going to talk about them. My number 6 right there on the bubble, I had a real hard time leaving off, was the Lions. Obviously, Amon-Ra St. Brown is great, but Jameson Williams is a number 2. I think that's kind of why I held back. I'm not saying he's a bad number 2 at all. I just think there's some better number 2s out there. I love Sam Laporta at tight end, obviously, but that they were right there on the bubble for me. That kind of didn't make my cut. So I'm curious to see if they made your top 5 or who you got in yours.
Yeah, so yeah, they did make my top 5, but that's soon to come. So I got number 5. I got the Vikings, and again, we talked about this earlier. I agree with you. I think they have a great wide receiver core. I love Justin Jefferson. I love Jordan Addison, T.J. Hawkinson. I just don't have a lot of faith in J.J. McCarthy, and I know that. I don't know if that should be part of us ranking them. I didn't rank this completely off of talent like we talked about earlier. I ranked it off production and what I thought that they were going to do, and I thought they would fall pretty safely in that number 5 spot, which a lot of people are not going to agree with simply because they have Justin Jefferson.
And understandably so. But like I said, when you're looking at it from a production standpoint, we're taking the quarterback play into a big count of this. And yeah, I think we're both got a lot of questions about J.J. McCarthy.
Yeah, I mean, right now, as the way I look at it, is they do not have a quarterback.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, I know that they have talent. I just don't know if they have anybody to get the ball to said talent.
Yeah, no matter how good you are, if you ain't got a quarterback to get you the ball, you ain't going to be putting up the numbers that make you one of these top 5 production guys.
Exactly. My number 4, I got Tampa again. I said it before. Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, they're going to make my top 5 as long as they have anybody throwing them the ball. And I love Baker Mayfield's. They're going to make it. I also love Jalen McMillan. I think Chris Godwin coming back healthy as a healthy wide receiver number 2. Jalen McMillan is a 3rd round pick last year in the 2024 draft. I'm excited about them as a whole. They're not last year. I'm sorry. Jalen McMillan the year before right. This is his sophomore year. And
yeah.
So he was a 3rd round pick in I guess that would have been 2024, but
yeah.
Anyways, yeah. But then also Emeka Egbuka.
Yep, however you say that.
Yeah, I think their wide receiver room is stacked, and they have a really good quarterback in Baker, who is just one of my favorite quarterbacks to watch play because he still has a little bit of that backyard football going on. He's a playmaker. He's tough. He's athletic. Not the biggest guy in the world, but he makes it work. So I'm a big fan of I like the Buccaneers as a whole. We'll get into that more about how much I like their team or dislike their team as a whole, but I have their wide receiver core as a number 4. Number 3,
okay.
I have the Lions.
All right, interesting.
So I talked about it earlier. I think that wide receiver rooms need a mix of people. I don't think you can have, the same style of wide receiver in the room like we talked about earlier. I think you need your route runners, you need your speedsters, and you need your chain movers, and that's exactly how I labeled these people on the Lions. I got Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think he's an excellent route runner. You have your speedster in Jameson Williams, and then you have your chain mover, the guy that kind of is your concrete in your receiving core that's going to get you past the chains when you need him, and that's Sam Laporta at tight end. I know he had an excellent season, and then he kind of fell off, but he still has it. I don't think it's anything with him. And then, their offensive playbook, their coaches, the way that when you want to talk about production, not only do they have, and I took a little bit of this into account as well when I was ranking mine, is like their running back group, and how are you going to open up the pass, and is your team all passing, or do you have a good running back room to open up the game? And if we're talking about running back duos, you got Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, and I talked about in the last podcast, I think Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be one of, if not the best running back in the NFL next year. He also catches the ball out of the backfield, so you could throw him in there as like part of the receiving core. I got them in my number 3 just because I think their offense is one of the most dynamic offenses in the NFL. Just all the way around, wide receivers, quarterback, tight end, running backs, like just all around their wide receiving, or their offense in general is just fun to watch and extremely productive.
Yeah,
so
I agree with that.
They're my number 3, and then our 1 and 2 is the same but flipped. I got the Eagles at number 2, and I knew that the Bengals and the Eagles, spoiler alert, the Bengals are my number 1. I knew that the Bengals and the Eagles were going to be my number 1 and my number 2, so the way that I kind of went about this was I compared apple to apple, basically, and I asked, who would I want as my quarterback? Do I want Joe Burrow or do I want Jalen Hurts? I'm taking Joe Burrow. As my wide receiver 1, who do I want? Do I want Jamar Chase or do I want A.J. Brown? I know that A.J. Brown is excellent, but I got to take Jamar Chase. T. Higgins and Devontae Smith is a little bit hard for me. I will say the only thing that boosted my thing with T. Higgins was how much, across the board really, and I'm kind of covering 1 and 2 at the same time right here, but across the board, Joe Burrow sticking his neck out for Jamar Chase and T. Higgins specifically kind of boosted how much I believe in that Bengals roster this year, because you see that unity. I know the Eagles won the Super Bowl last year, and a lot of times second year, and I think we're specifically talking about 2025 season here. Sometimes after a Super Bowl, you see a little bit of a downslide in productivity from players, whether they get complacent or whatever. I think the Bengals are hungrier than the Eagles are. I think they have a better quarterback. I think that quarterback, Joe Burrow, believes in his offense. That's kind of the reason that I put T. Higgins a little bit above Devontae Smith. It's not necessarily because I think T. Higgins is better than Devontae Smith. It's just his quarterback believes in him, stuck his neck out for him. So, and then the one thing I guess I could have put for the Eagles above the Bengals was they obviously have Saquon Barkley, so setting up the pass. I mean, they have arguably the number 1, not arguably. I mean, he is currently the number 1 running back in the NFL. So when you play the Eagles, you're not even thinking about A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, which is dangerous, not to mention Dallas Goedert. I mean, it's a very hard decision between this 1 and 2, but overall, just if we're talking about productivity, I think that the Bengals wide receiver core has a better year with everything involved. Winning the Super Bowl, the possibility of a Super Bowl slump, the idea that Joe Burrow's sticking his neck out. Again, you talked about Mike Gesicki. I think he's great. He also signed a 3-year, $25.5 million deal this year. A bunch of blockbuster deals going out to this receiving core, and they got a lot to prove this year, and I think they come out and do prove that. And then, on top of why, obviously, I don't think I need to explain to anybody why the Eagles are number 2. If anything, I spent most of my time explaining to you guys why they're not number 1, but to give them their flowers, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, led by Saquon Barkley. They got Jahan Dotson, tight end Dallas Goedert.
Those are the top 2 like that. I think if anybody makes a list, they're, you can flip-flop them any way you want. But I do like you said, with the Bengals having Joe Burrow, and I understand but you got to have a passer to get the ball to these receivers.
Yep.
So from a production standpoint, yeah, I could 100% see the Bengals being that top spot for you. That makes sense. I thought another interesting topic that we can go ahead and dive into. I think statistically, every year there's about 3 teams that don't make the playoffs that made it the year before, and 3 teams that do. That's kind of an average per season. You get 3 new teams. You kind of get the same contenders every year, but about three in each conference. So pretty much 6 new playoff teams a year make it, and some that don't. So we can start with NFC or AFC or however you want to do it, but were you able to kind of figure out maybe who you think might miss the playoffs that made it this past year?
Yeah, so I didn't really break it down too much between AFC and NFC. I just kind of put together a list. Again,
Yeah,
kind of
fighting for your life.
kind of did the bare minimum this week. But so you want to start with teams that will make the playoffs that did not make the playoffs last year?
Opposite teams that are going to miss, and then we'll talk about who's going to fill their shoes. Okay. Yeah, so who's gonna miss that made it last year?
So I kind of did a weird one with the miss the playoffs. I wasn't really necessarily going off of who just missed it last year. I kind of went more the direction of who's going to end their drought. Like if there was a team out there like some of these
the teams that made it that aren't going to be there this year.
Oh, that's what I asked the first time. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so my number one answer is the Steelers.
I think that's an easy one. Yeah.
We talked about that earlier, and that's what I was saying earlier that it kind of feeds into one of our other questions. I think the Steelers are going to have a very down year. And we talked about it earlier, so we don't have to dig into it too much. I just don't have a lot of faith in Aaron Rodgers. I don't have a lot of faith in his consistency. And I think even though DK might have an up year and be good in fantasy or whatever, that's not going to be enough. I think they might break 500 and have like a winning season, but I don't think they make the playoffs. My other answer for that is the Broncos. I actually think we might see a sophomore slump from Bo Nix. It has more to do with what's around Bo Nix than what it is like just Bo Nix in general. Even if they I don't know. Did they end up signing J.K. Dobbins? Do you know? Okay, so even with signing J.K. Dobbins, I think that running back room is among the worst in the NFL. They got a subpar receiving core with even outside of Cortland Sutton. They got a tough division. I think it'll just be tough for them to compete for a playoff spot. And then you said 3.
Yeah.
My third one is the Rams. I think the Rams are a tough spot, just due solely to their division. I think anybody, and we talked about this in a previous podcast, is I think that division, and I keep going back to it, and it might be because I'm a Seahawks fan, but I'm just so like locked in on that division. That division is just so up for grabs. I thought it was an easy kind of, and I thought it would be a different answer than what you gave as well. Is some of these I'm trying to like make sure that we have somewhat of a different answer.
Yeah.
The Rams with their division, I think the Seahawks, the Cardinals, the 49ers, any of those teams could for sure surpass their 2024 wins. And then the Rams, I just don't feel like they improved much this offseason. If they did improve at all, it
wasn't very noticeable.
Yeah, and then they were a 10-win team, barely kind of made it last year. They were tied with the Seahawks in win percentages. They only made the playoffs due to a head-to-head. Their offensive line, Matthew Stafford, he is getting older. I'm not going to say that he's, aging or whatever, but, he's getting out there. And this offensive line, can they protect him? And outside of Puka Nacua, like who else is going to step up in their receiving core? I know that we talked about, you had them pretty high in your receiving core. I got questions about like what they did in the offseason to improve drastically from what they were last season, and they barely made the playoffs last season. So I think they're kind of an easy pick to say that maybe, along with the Broncos, I think my Broncos and my Rams pick are 2 kind of easy picks to say like they're teetering either or. It's more so, like I said, the things around them and their divisions.
Well, I think that's pretty good. I would disagree with the Rams. The Rams are actually one of my kind of sneaky possible Super Bowl picks. I think if Matt Stafford's gonna see another Super Bowl, that it might be this year. He's only got 2-3 years left in the tank, so I'm expecting big things from them. But I do see what you're talking about. They didn't add a whole lot. At least nothing that, like I said, that's very noticeable to be like, oh wow, that because they added this, now I see them getting over that hump and getting into. So I get that. I broke mine up into kind of AFC and NFC, which you almost did a clean sweep of the
I
AFC.
did,
So
yeah. Accent.
and funny enough, though, you stole both of mine, the Steelers and Broncos. I think again, not necessarily with just Bo Nix, but that whole team. I just think that the AFC West has gotten a lot stronger. I think I'm expecting a lot more things out of the Chargers. The Raiders probably might split with them, so that's just a real tough division to have three teams coming out of again. So I like the Steelers and Broncos to miss the playoffs. My one that's probably going to be very controversial is the Texans from the AFC. I think if I had to pick a third team, I could see the Texans slipping this year. CJ Stroud is already dealing with a shoulder injury, and so, and I'm not trying to predict injuries. If I just had to pick, something about the Texans make me feel like they might have a bit of a down year. Teams, they've been great for 2 years now. I think teams are starting to figure him out a little bit because they weren't as explosive last year. C.J. Stroud, he didn't have a sophomore slump, but he wasn't what he was his rookie year, statistics wise, and just kind of eye test. Seems like he did fall off a little bit. I think he might have similar struggles again this year, especially if he's dealing with any sort of injury.
Just add Nick Chubb too, though.
Which I think, yeah, and that's a great addition. But he's an older guy. I think that's kind of them grasping at straws at this point. It's like, oh, hey, let's add that big piece to push it. And I think that's going to be, I think that might be a miss. I'm not saying that Nick Chubb's going to be a complete bust with the Texans, but I think that was one of their big offseason moves. I know it just happened, but like, I don't know if that's enough to really hoist them back into the playoffs. And I think the Jags did get better. I'm expecting Trevor Lawrence to have a little bit of a bounce back year. Honestly, I think he's been a disappointment for Jags fans and probably anybody that's a fan of Trevor Lawrence. He hasn't lived up to the expectation. I think maybe with Liam Cohen and, I hate to say it, but Travis Hunter, I think they might find a resurgence this year. And I'll just go ahead and say that they're one of my teams that I have to possibly make the playoffs this year that missed last year.
Cool. Yeah, we'll get into that.
Yeah, so those are my three from the AFC, and then the NFC for the ones that I have missing. I got the Vikings. I think that's an easy one. Me and you aren't very high on JJ McCarthy, so I think that's an easy one for me to miss the playoffs. If I had to pick, the NFC was a lot tougher for me because it just seems like the bottom competition isn't as strong as like the AFC. But if I had to pick three teams to miss from the NFC, I went Vikings, Buccaneers, which I know I'm high on, but I could see the Falcons having a great year somehow, or maybe the Panthers, whatever. But I could see the Bucs missing, and another one of my shockers, I could see the Lions missing. And I know that's probably going to rattle some chains, but I don't think I think we're going to see this year how important Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson were to that team. I know they've kind of promoted within to fill those OC and DC slots, but I do think that both of those coaches, obviously they're now head coaches, so when you lose essentially two of your best coaches, again, I always look at Dan Campbell as kind of a general manager guy, maybe not the best coach, X's and O's guy, but I do think he's a great head coach. I could see them kind of struggling this year. They've had 2 years of very great success. I always say success is hard to sustain in the NFL. So, yeah, I could see the Lions slipping and the Packers running away with that division. And I kind of gave a sneak peek with the Jags. I'll give a sneak peek. I got the Bears possibly making the NFC playoffs this year because I'm that high on Ben Johnson.
Well, so I mean, to kind of extend on that, I think the whole NFC is likely to undergo like a reshuffle of sorts. I mean,
yeah,
it's not super likely that the Detroit Lions and the Minnesota Vikings are, they're going to win 15 to 14 games again. The Bears are, obviously shaking you up to be a more improved team, or, everybody says that every offseason for the Bears. And then I think the Packers in that same division on that, Jordan Love, Josh Jacobs, we've been high on the Packers here lately. So I think just the NFC in general is going to be different this year because of the really unrealistic success that teams like the Lions and the Vikings had winning 15 to 14 games. So they're probably not going to do that again. So we're going to see. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like I said, it's just hard to sustain success. I mean, to win that many, especially in one of the toughest divisions of football, it's understandable that, and I know they were riddled with injuries last year. I hope that's not the case again. But sometimes it seems like these guys that get injured, it kind of sticks with them, and I hope that's not the case. Especially with guys like Aiden Hutchinson and Sam Laporta, you hate to see you lose those guys, but sometimes, like I said, when you injure one thing, it just kind of sticks around. So yeah, that's why I got them potentially. I'm not saying they will, but I'm saying if I had to pick out of the ones that made it last year, those were my three that I got missing: the Vikings, Lions, Bucks, Texans, Broncos, Steelers. And so, who do you got? Teams that are going to make it this year that did not make it last year. Again, you can do it however you got it schemed up. I did mine AFC, NFC, but who you got making it this year?
Yeah, so I actually did mine because I kind of assumed, I didn't know you were going to do AFC, NFC. I didn't know how we were going to do it, but I figured you were going to do it based on like last year. And I kind of went more so who's going to break like the droughts of not making the playoffs. Like who's the most surprising teams that might make the playoffs this year. And one of my teams, I have the Panthers.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think, Bryce Young is starting to show, not only Bryce Young starting to show like a little bit more, what is the like moxie or like just
yeah,
kind of like getting into his own in the NFL. It took him a little bit, but I'm starting to see it from him. Not only that, but adding Rico Dowdle and then their pick with Tatora McMillan, or however you pronounce his name, and then they got Xavier Legette, and that they're building a solid team around him. And then I mean they have a pretty tough road ish, I guess, with the Bucks, Falcons. I got nuts.
But it's arguably one of the easier divisions to win. Again, I'm high on the Bucks, but yeah, I think most people would agree the NFC South is probably one of the easier divisions to win.
Yeah, I just think this year could be the year that Young puts it all together, finally validates like his top pick status, and gets to that winning season. And it would be, I think, their first winning season, or no, their first time making it to the playoffs or the postseason since 2017.
Wow.
Yeah, so I got them kind of shocking the world, if that's what you want to label it as. Again,
yeah, I think that would shock. Yeah, I like that pick though. I think that's a good pick. Definitely would shock a lot of people. Yeah.
And then you said 3, which I guess it works out because I'm sure you have 6 because you did AFC and NFC. Yeah. I did 4 total because I couldn't really decide between these 4. That Panthers are my number 4. My number 3 is I got the Jets. Yeah,
that's an interesting one.
They haven't been to the playoffs, and I was going for shock factor because I did want to be different. Their last playoff season was 2010. It's tied for the longest current period of mediocrity, basically, in American professional sports.
Wow.
Yeah. So they've had a crazy run. I mean, with Sam Darnold, Zach Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, the Achilles tear from him. I mean, they just had a spell of bad luck. It's been a battle year after year with them. And I think now with my big thing, the reason I picked the Jets is because they formed a squad specifically to aid Aaron Rodgers, right? They built a team to give Aaron Rodgers the best chance to succeed. And obviously he tore his Achilles, and then he had like kind of a, whatever. Like we talked about Aaron Rodgers as much as I'm willing to talk about him. But now they got Justin Fields, who also, I mean, on their team, they got Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall. Like they have this young team that's been kind of built around, like I said, they wanted the veteran quarterback out of Aaron Rodgers to carry them to their first playoff season since 2010. He couldn't do it. I think Justin Fields come in there and maybe takes advantage of, again, Garrett Wilson, in my opinion, one of the better like downfield threats in the NFL. Breece Hall, a young, dynamic, very, very talented running back. I mean, you could argue how talented he is all day. You might be able to squeeze him in the top 5 in the fantasy world, at least.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think for them to become one of the AFC's 7 playoff teams, they're gonna need Justin Fields to take advantage of a lot of this stuff, and it really kind of rides on him. But I think it's built around, they've built a team for a quarterback to be successful. They have a decent defense. They have a lot of young talent. They have a lot of just talent waiting to be used. And I think Justin Fields is looking for a team to allow him to take over and use his legs, use his. And I've been high on Justin Fields for a long time. I think he's a great quarterback. He just needs somewhere that's willing to give him a solid chance. And I think the Jets might be it. And it's a crazy long shot, but I think it would be insane if I say this on the podcast and they make the playoffs in 2025 for the first time in 15 years. So that was my number 3.
Yeah.
Number 4, I got I'm sorry. Yeah, that was my number 3. Number 2, I got the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah. This might be one of the worst picks ever. Yeah, you're just picking the teams that nobody's picking, but hey, all right, I'll let you defend yourself.
I'm going crazy here. All right, so I think Daniel Jones takes over.
I agree.
I think Daniel Jones takes over, and I think with the squad they have, they got a good squad. They've made some good offseason moves. I think AR, regardless of what happens, I think quarterback production is what they need. That's all they need to catapult their way into at least a 10-win season. And I know they're in a pretty tough division with the Texans, Jaguars, and Titans. But I'm looking at their team and the stuff they did, and they had a weakness in their secondary. They added Cameron Bynum and Charvarius Ward. I don't have a lot of – I just think that Daniel Jones taking control of this team with what they got going on, and then the Texans, like you said, maybe having a bit of a down season, and the Jaguars maybe having a bit of it's more of a division thing for the Colts for me.
Yeah, kind of similar to the Panthers. Yeah, I mean, the AFC South is the easiest division in the AFC. I'd agree.
Yeah, I think it's more of like maybe the Texans have a down year, the Jaguars have a down year, and the Titans just aren't quite there yet. The Colts, with even if AR takes off or if Daniel Jones takes over, and with the squad that they have, I think they have the pieces there, especially, with Jonathan Taylor. They got a solid team. They just need to put pieces together. And if these other teams in their division kind of fall short, I think they could squeak their way into a playoff or a postseason.
Yeah, honestly, when you break it down, it really don't sound that crazy. I don't think they do it with Anthony Richardson, but I do think Daniel Jones, if he can find any sort of revitalization with the Colts, maybe the New York market was too big for him. I love Shane Steichen as a head coach. I think he could probably get the best out of Daniel Jones, but these aren't guys that are gonna blow your mind. But Michael Pittman Jr., Adonai Mitchell, Josh Downs, Alec Pierce, just kind of good production guys. That's a solid receiving core, and then you add Tyler Warren in the mix, which obviously I love him. I think he's going to be a star in the NFL. A good group of receivers, not the greatest, but a good group. And then Jonathan Taylor in the backfield. But yeah, I mean, play action.
They add Charvarius Ward and Cameron Bynum at on their defense, and Charvarius Ward is one of the best DBs in the NFL for a long. I mean, that man is a monster. They're building the team, and it's kind of flying under the radar a little bit.
Yeah, well, you've been high on them all years. I'm not. I guess you can't. You're tripling down now, I think, with the Colts. We've talked about Colts probably more than anybody else in the world right now. But hey, I respect it. You stick with your picks. You like them. Who you got at number 1?
It's not necessarily number 1. None of these are really in order. Yeah. So I got the Falcons.
Yeah, I think that's a good one.
The last playoff season was 2017. I think with their second season under Raheem Morris, and first full campaign behind Michael Penix Jr. I think they're gonna kind of make a bit of a bounce back. They added Leonard Floyd, and then their first rounders, Jalen Walker and James Pierce Jr. I'd throw him out there as a Tennessee fan. I think he's gonna make an addition to that defense, whether people are have him on their radar or not. I've preached for a long time. He is the perfect idea of a NFL pass rusher. He's long, he's quick, he is aggressive. I think he's going to be a lot better than what people give him credit for. So I think their defense is going to improve a lot, especially in the pass rush. I think
Yeah.
right now the the NFL has the Falcons set for 6 primetime games, and one of them's in Berlin. So they're in the spotlight a lot this year, which matters more than people realize.
Yeah.
So I got Michael Penix kind of taking over the Falcons, and obviously they have the weapons that they have, but
Well, that's another one of those, just that division. It's kind of up for grabs for anybody outside the Saints, who don't exist, as you say. So, but yeah, that is up for grabs for any of those 3 teams to make it.
Yeah, that's a big reason why fucking, what was I about to say? The 2 of them, Panthers and the Falcons, both made my list as possible chances of making it in, is just because I think both of them can make it. Just that division in general is just right now. Everybody always is considered the Bucks, and I know you're high on the Bucks. I think they have a little bit of a down year this year. I like the Bucks a lot. I'm just not.
It's a toss up, yeah.
Yeah. So, and then like I said, the Saints, I think they have. I don't know what they got going.
They got a long way to go.
Yeah. So they're in full rebuild. Panthers and Falcons right now, I think are my really my favorite team right now to make the playoffs that didn't or hasn't in a while is the Panthers. I think Bryce Young's really going to put it together there. I'm excited to see them play. But that's my top 4 at least. Okay. I didn't break it down AFC, NFC, but I did give you maybe a little bit of mix of both with the Colts, Falcons, Panthers, and who's the other team? Jets.
It's okay to forget the Jets. We don't have to. If you don't, I don't know if you want to say that one twice, but
look. Hey, Justin Fields is gonna figure it out, dog.
I think he's definitely got to figure out the passing. He's got the athleticism, but he's got to be a more consistent passer. Same when Lamar started out. Same when Jalen started out. If he can figure out the passing, yeah, I'm with you. I like Justin Fields.
He ain't even got to.
But he's got to be a better passer.
He's got to extend plays and then throw it up and hope Garrett Wilson's down there somewhere, or check it down to Breece Hall. His job is extremely simple. Find Garrett Wilson or check it down to Breece Hall.
Yeah, but that's the thing with Justin Fields, is he's been inconsistent. He's got to make those throws that you're saying that he can make, but yeah, you got to make them. And
I'm excited to see him at the Jets. For the first time ever, I'm excited. For the first time in my entire life, I'm excited to watch the Jets play football.
I will say I'm more excited for the Jets this year than I was last year. So there's that.
Yeah.
But yeah, with mine, I think what you were touching on with the Panthers and the Bucks, or the Panthers and the Falcons, I didn't put them on my list as teams to make it, but I guess in a way it's sort of insinuated, because I did put the Buccaneers as a team to miss. So, do with that as you will. But I got to me, it's an easy one, the Cowboys. I think we're going to probably see 3 teams come out of the NFC East. It's going to be the Cowboys, Commanders, and Eagles. I think that just is what it is. So I got the Cowboys. I think that's kind of an easy one for a team to make it this year. I did put the Niners in, which I'm not crazy about, but I like Kyle Shanahan. To me, the Niners are just kind of one of those teams that they're not going to miss the playoffs 2 years in a row. They got a lot of questions, though. I will say the Niners isn't just an easy, they're going to make it, but I put them on there. My kind of wild card in the NFC was the Bears. Again, I'm high on Ben Johnson. I do think Caleb Williams starts to figure it out. I think having that offensive coordinator as his head coach now with Ben Johnson, I think that helps him. It's another year I think he's just going to get more. I think he's going to be a guy that takes time to develop. And I'm not saying I like Caleb Williams, but I do kind of believe that he will be a pretty good quarterback in the NFL. And I think we start to see that this year. And maybe they make that number 7 spot in the playoffs. At one of my bubble teams, I didn't put them on my top 3 in the NFC, which is kind of funny because I know we both said that we're not super excited about them. But maybe like the NFC Colts for you. I got the Cardinals kind of on that outside looking in maybe, but they were quietly a really good team last year. Trey McBride at tight end's great. It's another year now for Marvin Harrison Jr. We're kind of waiting on Kyler to do something again. He hadn't done nothing in the last 3 years since they went on that really hot streak and were 9-0. So they're kind of one of those teams where it's like, hey, don't sleep on the Cardinals, but I think they could surprise some folks this year too.
I'm interested to see what Marvin Harrison Jr. does now that he looks like DK Metcalf. Have you seen the amount of weight that man's put on?
Oh yeah. He looks completely different.
He looks like a whole nother human being. And sometimes that benefits people and sometimes it hurts them. So I'm interested to see how he performs this year with that addition of muscle, weight, whatever it is. He's put on a lot of it.
Yeah. So yeah, that'll be something to watch for sure. Yeah, like I said, second year with him and Collar together. I mean, if that'll be a waste of talent if they don't make it work this year anytime soon. So,
Agreed.
But then with the AFC, I think the easy one that every single person in the world would put on there is the Bengals. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time with that. I think they finally figure it out a little bit this year, and they're going to make the playoffs. The Patriots are my Colts to you. I'm super high on the Patriots. Love Mike Vrabel. They added some great pieces. Stephon Diggs, hate him or love him, he's a great receiver. They've already got some pretty good receivers there. They've added pieces on the offensive line, and they've added pieces on defense. I just think they've done a lot of things right this offseason, and I think that in a very weak AFC East, they might steal 2 games from the Dolphins and steal 2 games from the Jets.
Yeah, so it's your Patriots versus my Jets.
Yeah. So, and I think Drake May kind of takes a little bit of a step this year. So, yeah, I like the Patriots. And then my other team, it was kind of back and forth with me for this. I didn't want to be too much of a homer, and I wanted to be a little more logical. So I did say the Jags to make it because, again, I think the Texans might slip a little bit. But I could see the Jags figuring it out. It kind of boiled down to Trevor Lawrence has been in the league now for a while. It's time for him to make that step. So if he is going to make it, I think this is the year he does it. If not, I think they get rid of him in 2 years, and they're going to be moving on. So it's kind of make or break right now for Trevor Lawrence, so we'll see what he's made of.
How much of an impact I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but on the Jags, how much of an impact do you think Travis Hunter makes, like his first season there with Trevor Lawrence?
I think he's going to make a great impact. I actually think that his greatest impact, which is wild as a rookie, I think it's going to be his locker room and his motivation.
I agree.
Because, like you said, he's a team guy. He's funny. He just loves ball. He wants to work. I think he's going to help bring that team into a winning mindset. Like I said, just a great teammate, and he's all about football. So I think he's almost more of a culture change for that team. He's going to produce on the field, but I think even more importantly, I think he really gives that team a true leader, even as a rookie this year.
Yeah, I've always said, and none of this is recorded on podcasts, but I've always had the opinion of the Jaguars as like they have zero, almost negative swag about their team. There's never been any reason why I wanted to tune in and watch the Jaguars play. And I think that Travis Hunter brings that much needed attitude or swag, like whatever you want to call
it.
Energy. He brings something to the organization that gets them fired up, gets them, something to give Duval County to cheer about, because Trevor Lawrence just he just didn't do it. He's almost as boring as the organization itself. He doesn't have
He is very boring.
Yes, I agree with you. I think Travis Hunter brings a much needed cultural change to that program. I love that pick.
Yeah. So yeah, I do like the Jags, and I gotta touch on them. I haven't been much of a homer. We really haven't talked about them at all, nor has anybody in all of media. But the Titans, I believe in Cam Ward. I just believe in him. I think the biggest question right now, well, there's a lot of questions for the Titans, but the biggest question this season as to how much success they have, I think it's the head coach, Brian Callahan. I think if Brian Callahan is a true head coach, and if Cam Ward lives up to what I believe he's going to, I think we could see another. I mean, we saw C.J. Stroud 2 years ago have an amazing rookie campaign, make the playoffs. We saw Jaden Daniels damn near make an MVP run last year and make the playoffs, go to the NFC Championship. I think this year is going to be, it could be Cam Ward. I love everything about the guy. He's honestly, to me, a lot like Travis Hunter. He's all about ball. He didn't show up to the draft in some flashy suit with $1 million necklace. He wore a basic ass suit that he looked like he borrowed from his uncle, and just like that's just who he is. He hasn't been talked about. We know he was a 0-star recruit coming out of high school, played at Incarnate. I love everything about Cam Ward. We'll see if he can play, but I have very high hopes. He's talking trash to Jeffrey Simmons at practice. Him and Jeffrey Simmons have been talking shit back and forth during these practices. Let me tell you something interesting. The other day, I think 2 days ago, the Titans' first day at all-team practice, Cam Ward threw an interception to Cody Barton in the middle of the field. It was his 4th pass of the day. He was 3 for 3 up until that point. He threw an interception. Jeffrey Simmons is talking trash. Cam Ward's talking trash. You know what Cam Ward does after he throws that pick? He comes out the rest of practice and goes 18 for 18 the rest of the day. He went 21 for 22 on his passes for an entire practice. He threw the pick, but early on, and he comes back and goes 18 for 18 the rest of practice. I mean, that's just the type of guy he is. He's cool, calm, collected. And who else do we talk about that like? Jaden Daniels, CJ Stroud, just the cool, calm under pressure. No moment too big for him. And I think Cam Ward's got that factor. So, again, I think, you got Tyler Lockett, you got Calvin Ridley, Tony Pop. I mean, there's pieces on that team. And that's why I say I think if Brian Callahan is a real head coach, like a real franchise guy that we could see winning a Super Bowl with, I think he's got to prove it this year. And if he does that, watch out. Don't be surprised if the Titans end up winning the AFC South or possibly getting in there at that number 7 seed with a 9 to 10 win season.
Yeah, I agree. I think Ward has found a way that his impact has obviously extended much beyond like his on-field play. I've heard a lot about like him connecting with his teammates, earning their respect, becoming like, a cornerstone of that locker room and the camaraderie that he's creating within that team, and like just building like like even with the trash talking that you're talking about, but he's still continuing to garner praise from everybody on the team, including head coaches, offensive coordinators. Everybody's high on him. His attitude, his work ethic, all resonate deeply within that Titans locker room. And
well,
that's a huge thing. That's almost like one of the biggest things you need to do as a quarterback is gain the respect of your teammates, show everybody you're willing to work hard, and then once if you get that respect, that's like step number 1. So
yeah, and he's one of these guys. It's cliche, but he's doing it. He's the first guy in the building and the last one out. When rookie minicamp was going on, Cam Ward had all of the rookies meet him before practice, like an hour or two before practice, like 4 a.m. The coaches showed up to the building, and all the rookies are already there with Cam Ward leading them. That's and awesome. going through what they're going to be working on that day. That's what you want in a quarterback, man. I mean, like I said, whether it's clear, but I think that's just him. He's not a guy who's doing this because they're not talking about him anyway. So it's like he's not doing it for the media. That's just who he is. So I'm super hyped to have him, even if he don't pan out. I love him already, and I love the pick. I won't regret it even in 4 to 5 years if he's off the team, but I don't see that happening. And also, just real quick to touch, they've added some really good wide receivers. Shamari Dyke, or DK from Florida, he's been doing really good. Gunnar Helm from Texas, and then another sneaky one that's actually been silently maybe one of our best draft picks was Alec Iomanner from Stanford. He's a big, tall receiver. He's a big X guy, can play on the outside, the edges. And apparently he's been doing great at practice, catching all these balls. He caught a 60-yard bomb from Will Levis over L'Jarius Sneed. I'm just saying that it's a young team. Yeah, I'm not saying they're going to the Super Bowl, but with a guy like Cam Ward leading the charge, we've seen it the last 2 years. These rookie quarterbacks can come in and make a change in the organization overnight, and I'm hoping and praying, but also logically, I think that it really, truly could happen for the Titans this year.
Yeah, I saw a quote from Cam Ward after OTAs. They asked him, what's next for you? And he said, in quotations, just work out, stay in the playbook, and throw the fuck out the football. So
yeah. He's throwing the F out of a football. He's throwing the up ball.
Yeah, and then
there's no F in football anymore. It's just football.
He was talking about that first 7-on-7 they had. He said, he threw a ball to somebody. He said, I'm glad I threw it to him because that's 6 points for my team. The second one, I should have sidearmed it. I don't know why I did some generic stuff. I have to continue to move linebackers with my eyes and really just play clean football, especially in the red zone. I'm aware of that, but I'd rather do all the crazy stuff in practice so that in game I know I can get away with it. And I know that sounds like just a generic thing, but the fact that he's talking about sidearming it and trying to like get away with some of this crazy stuff is, and again, people, that's where football's headed is these quarterbacks have to be able to do some of that stuff, this Patrick Mahomes style sidearming. And,
Well, that's exactly who I thought of when you said that. I actually hadn't heard that quote. But yeah, Patrick Mahomes, all these crazy plays, like he does that stuff in practice, and then he does it in the games because he's already proven to himself and his coaches and his teammates that he can do it. And practice is the time to do that stuff. And I love that. And maybe that's the difference between Will Levis and Cam Ward and stuff. Will Levis would try shit in the middle of the game that he probably never tried in practice, and obviously it just didn't work. But Cam Ward, I think he's at least understandable of saying, hey, look, can I make this work at practice? He understands once it's game time, it's be smart. Make the plays, you know what I'm saying? Like, he's not going to go out there and risk shit in the middle of the game that he didn't risk during practice. If he risked it during practice and it paid out, he might be like, hey, yeah, I know I can do it. And he has the skill set, building that confidence. But yeah, I think that's a really cool quote. He's a guy, man. I'm super excited to see how he looks this year.
Yeah, another quote he said is, at the end of the day, I'm a gunslinger. I live by that, and I'll always die by that. Coach Callahan knows the type of guy he has in the quarterback room and me, and I'm just thankful I have guys around me that can help me out. So he's going to be experimental a little bit, but that's kind of what I bring from that is like,
yeah,
Coach Brian Callahan knows the type of guy he has in the quarterback room. And I'm thankful that I have guys around me to help me out. I'm a gunslinger. I live by that. I'll die by that. And we're gonna try to get crazy out here. And I'm okay with that. I don't hate that.
Me too. No, I actually love it.
Go out there and figure it out, man.
Yeah, and that's the thing when you have a team, and I don't want to compare it to the Jags, but kind of just low energy. There's not a lot of excitement going on in that building. When you have a guy come in there like that who's ready to sling it and just play fun, free football. I mean, obviously play smart, but bringing that energy and like, yeah, I am who I am. I'm going to fucking sling it downfield. He's talking about Calvin Ridley like being one of the best receivers. He's just hyping up his guys, though, which I love, too.
Yeah.
But you do got Calvin Ridley, one of I'd say a top 15 receiver. Maybe at this stage, top 15. But he's a dog. Tyler Lockett, experienced veteran. He's someone you can throw it up to, and he's going to come down with it. Like I said, some of these rookies are coming out. We got Gunnar Helm, Chikakonkwo at tight end. This is a good team. Like, what do we got to lose? Well, I don't think anybody's expecting us to win the Super Bowl. So, like, let's go out there and just sling it, and maybe it works.
Well, I love that he said all that, and he says, I should have sidearmed it. I don't know why I did some generic shit. But I have to, in the same sentence, he also said, like, I have to continue to move linebackers with my eyes and just continue to play really clean football, especially in the red zone. So he's aware that, like, he needs to go out there and make plays, but, like, at the same time, let's continue to work on fundamentals, moving linebackers and cornerbacks and safeties with his eyes, and continue to play clean football while also trying to do some of this crazy sidearm stuff. Don't be too generic and try to go out there and be flashy, but in a clean way. And that's what makes great quarterbacks.
Well, that's 100%. I think a lot of people have kind of compared him to Patrick Mahomes, just some similarities. Not saying he is Patrick Mahomes, but that's what Mahomes does. He goes out there and he makes those flashy sidearm plays, the no-look passes. He makes them look ordinary, routine, and professional and clean. And that's, like I said, exactly what you're talking about. It's not that we're going out here and just playing stupid football, but we're being creative while also being smart and efficient.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that was my final team for the AFC. Watch out for my Titans, baby. Here we come.
Yeah, see, so I didn't go too homebrewed on mine. Obviously, I think we talked about it in a previous podcast. I do have, I went very obviously outside the box on mine, just because I knew some of our answers would be the same, so I wanted to go more so.
Not like that.
Who's gonna break the drought? So that's why I kind of picked like people like the Jets and stuff. But I still, just as much as I picked the Rams to be one of the teams that missed the playoffs, I did that as a little bit of a shout out to the to the 12th man out there. I think the Seahawks have
Yeah,
just as
yeah,
much of a chance of making the playoffs as anybody in the NFC West. And
yeah. I think
it's hard to talk about the Seahawks right now because it's almost like a brand new team. And
you don't know what they're gonna look like, really.
yeah, no idea. I mean, I am over the moon excited to see what happens with them. I just don't really, and it may be like as a fan, I don't want to jinx it too much. So I'm a little bit like, I don't really want to talk about it too much. Like I'm kind of, a little bit hesitant to reach out there and put too much on the Seahawks this year. But I think as far as the Cardinals,
Yeah,
Rams, 49ers, Seahawks go in the NFC West, it's up for grabs, like I said earlier, or in a different podcast. But
that I would be, and I don't really understand. I mean, he's not really old, but I would be so much more excited for the Seahawks this year if they kept DK because, I mean, y'all, like you said, y'all were a tiebreaker away from making the playoffs last year with Geno Smith. And I think if Sam Darnold has any sort of similarities to what he did last year, I think, and not that they can't do it with this team, but everything stays the same. Just keep DK. You got DK Metcalf, Jackson Smith, and Jigba. Now you can get rid of Tyler Lockett, fine, but add in Cooper Kupp and have Sam Darnold possibly do what he did last year. That would be a very exciting team to watch.
yeah, and this might be like me looking at it through rose-colored glasses or whatever they say. But I think that if I'm searching for the bright side here, I think that losing DK opens up an insane amount of potential for Jackson Smith and the Jigba to finally become like the true number one wide receiver. And I think he needed that because I do think he has more potential long term than DK. And then, Cooper Kupp, I think, is a better wide receiver too. This goes back to like clashing in styles. DK and both JSN were deep threats for the most part, and they obviously they're built completely different, but I think we kind of utilize them in the same way, and we are going to use Cooper Kupp in a completely different way than we use JSN, and I think that's going to benefit the offense more than if we kept DK and JSN at the same time, because it was kind of like you just had two wide open receivers down the field. You had one big bodied guy that's going to reach up and grab the ball, and then another guy that's kind of a deep threat. Or in a route runner. I don't like getting rid of DK. I love DK, but I can see the bright side of having JSN as a number one and then bringing in Cooper Kupp, who is a completely different style of wide receiver. They might complement each other a little bit better.
Yeah, no, I could see that. I do think that's a good point. Yeah, when you have two guys doing the same thing, like you said, I mean, it's not doing all you need those different styles. That's why you have the X, the Y's, the Z's, the slot receiver. I mean, that's the whole point. You want that diversity. I get what you're saying there, but that would have just been really exciting because I mean, Sam Darnold goes from the Vikings with Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison to Jackson Smith and Jigba and DK and Cooper. I mean, it's like, I mean, could you get any luckier as a QB to go from that QB room to that QB room? But I still think it's a good team, and yeah, definitely someone to keep an eye on this year to see if they're able to figure it out in year one with, like you said, pretty much a brand new team.
Yeah, it's not just a brand new team, a brand new coaching staff, and obviously it's their second year, but still, like everybody knows that when you become a head coach or an offensive coordinator, a defensive coordinator of a new team, you don't really get your claws into them until year 2, 3, 4, whatever. So we're finally getting to see McDonald's like his vision for this team, and they're making some big changes. I'm glad they didn't make no changes to the running back position because I love K9 and I want him to continue to be on our roster. We've had very good running backs in the past and always had injury issues and stuff, and I just hope that they get that figured out. If they do, if Kenneth Walker can stay healthy and Sam Darnold does what he did last year and Cooper Kupp, he's coming in apparently with a whole new look. He shaved his beard off and has this different hairstyle, and he's taking on a whole new personality. Take that how you want to. JSN's taking over a new role as wide receiver one. Obviously, like you said, Sam Darnold taking over the offense. It's a who knows, I mean, I think it's a recipe for success, but it's just if they can take advantage of what they got, I think they'll be dangerous in their division. I'm not saying they're going to win the Super Bowl or anything, but I think they could definitely be better than the 49ers, Rams, or Cardinals.
Yeah, I think that's a good wrap up on the week, man. Covered everything we want to talk about. Got some pretty hot takes, I'd say, this week, but that's kind of what you do. That's what you do in the off season, though. You make the hot takes, the stuff that makes some good, fun stuff to talk about, and all the what ifs and what nots. And I think it was a good conversation topic wise this week.
Yeah, there's gonna be some TikToks about my Indianapolis Colts.
Oh, I'm sure you have. You'll get some clap back on that. We didn't really get too much into fantasy, and maybe next time we can just do almost a strictly fantasy one, because I know we've kind of been talking about doing that. Yeah, we kind of bounced around it a little bit when we were talking early on, but yeah, I think doing a strict fantasy one might be something we need to do next time and get people's opinions. I'd also say I don't think anybody listens to these, at least not the full length YouTube podcast. No. But if somehow, some way, someone made it all the way to the end, clearly you like what you hear. So add a comment, add a topic that you want to talk about, and we'll join in on the conversation, man. We'll, talk about whatever you want to talk about, discuss the team. We can do deep dives into whatever. So if anybody makes it this far, hey, appreciate you listening, and drop a comment, and we'll get you in on these debates.
Absolutely. Leave a comment, leave a like, subscribe, do whatever you need to do. If you're on TikTok, you're going to see some of these clips. I might post this one specifically. We are just up and coming, just two guys talking about football, two dads, Front Porch Podcast, Front Porch Wisdom meets football talk, da-da-da-da-da. We have our whole catchphrase. We have our thing. We talk about it. We do it. We live it. We love it. If you love it too, comment, subscribe. Tell me what you want. Tell us what you want to talk about, and we'll try to fit it in and hopefully create a conversation amongst not just us two, but everybody else as well. I appreciate it, everybody.